at a customer success that we've had with a government office, and we're going to go through a little bit of their data, and I'm going to show you a couple tips and tricks when you're looking at data through the software. And at the end, finally, we'll close it off with how it actually turned into a pretty successful win for this dealer. So I've left all the customer names out of this, but I'll give you a little bit of overview on the profile itself. We're talking about a government office, about 1,000 employees. We did the customer was the dealer was able to install FM in there to get a good idea of what was going on network wise. We installed the Print Audit 6 software to get a good idea of what was going on the local side. What we found was 285 printers and MFPs. 30% of their 285 devices were local, 14 different manufacturers, 141 different models. Pretty significant stuff if you look at it. What we did from there was we had the customer, their finance office, go through a bit of their expenditures and take a look at some things, and what we had them focus on simply was their spend on toner. Now, for a government office this size, and in fact what we were able to track was about 900 people in this system. They didn't want certain people tracked, so we got a good estimate on what they were doing. But what we figured was their average spend on toner on annual basis was $160,000. This is pretty significant. Pretty high amount of spend. So what I'm going to show you guys now is their data, and I'm just bringing up the Print Audit 6 analysis tool, and we're going to take a look at their environment. And as you can see here, we've got quite a bit of data that we've collected. Again, we were able to find out that there was, 285 printers, 141 different models, 14 different manufacturers in this customer, and the printing was going on in a fair amount of chaotic state. What you're looking at here is their data. This is out of the Print Audit 6. When we got it up and running, we've put on analysis just to track to see what was going on. And as you can see here, there's quite a bit of mishmash of information. So the first thing that we always suggest for any dealer to go through once they get this information collected and they're looking at the data, they need to look at filtering it. And as you can see here, we've got a couple things. I'm just going to show you here on this column here where it says type. We break down the printing down to 3 types. Here we've got direct to IP, so we know where the printer is, the IP, the MAC address of the printer through the Print Audit 6 software. We also have it on a network share basis. This would be on either people sharing out a local device or going through the UNC path, server path of the software. And then of course we have the ever so present local. Now, again, with Print Audit 6 analysis in there, if you do not filter out anything right off the bat, what you're going to get is you're going to get everything. And that includes not just local printers, but you'll also get things like these Adobe PDF converters. Now, Adobe PDF converters, a lot of them are when you're taking a document that's in a printed form and you're converting it to PDF. Originally, about a year ago when I started running assessments, I didn't think that this was an important indicator, but now as I delve deeper into the number of assessments that I've done, I realize that it is a key indicator of a couple of workflow things, and we'll touch base on that later. So it's a good idea, maybe to track it, maybe to run some KPIs or some stats on those document converters. Ultimately, if you wanted to know just true output, you can easily exclude these out, and it's very simple to do. A lot of you guys have had training on this before, but it's simple just to grab one of these and you can hit right click and create a group around it, and you can create this group and name it whatever you want, and you can move printers back and forth through groups. Now, once you have some of these groups established, one of the neat things you can do is you can actually save those groups and start over again. So if you wanted to change it and have different groups loaded up, you can do that. For time here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up, and I'm actually going to load up the group information that I've already created for this assessment. And as you can see here, now I've got every single type of printer that we've tracked, and the groups that they're in. Here's some card creators and label makers that we've decided to put into a group, and we're not going to track those. And it's very easy to select printers and not in and out for reporting services. So here in this case, I'm just going to hit the no and close that off. And as you can see here, I'm not going to track any of those systems. PDF creators, I've got them all into one group as well, and if I just hit this little title bar here, I can select them yes or no if I wanted to include them. But for this purpose, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at all of this data. I left a couple here in the individuals for a reason, just simply because there wasn't enough of them for a group. And I just decided not to group those. I left them as individuals, but now I can break it down and run reports on what everyone's doing workflow wise to these printers. So the first report that I always print off is the executive summary, and it's very easy to do. You just hit this little create report button. Here's the create report already highlighted. I'm just going to hit build, and as you can see here, I've got a whole number of pre-canned reports that I can take a look at. And the first thing I'm going to do is hit this executive summary and get my benchmark. So we're just going to let that run for a second here. And oh, I forgot, I need to select all the employees first. Here, let me just do that. And I'm going to build that report again. And just bear with me here while this report runs. And this is a good one to start with whenever you get the analysis up and running. As you can see here, it gives you a good benchmark of what was going on. So we tracked for a number of days, 47 days. What we tracked was 101,000 documents and 345,000 pages. What we also tracked was 900 users. Total black and white pages was 266,000, and there was 78,000 of color. And it goes down through it. There's a couple of things that you can note here. The way the system defaults right off the bat is with a static cost per page, but you can change that, and I'll show you how to change that. So the costs are simple estimates. Again, we were saying about 168,000 a year in just toner costs. We've projected this about 268,000 a year in printing, based on some of the numbers that were already in the system. So I just wanted to show you guys some other stuff that we can do here, and I'm just gonna remove and uncheck all of these, and I'm gonna bring out the first thing that I always focus on, which is this one here, which is all these USB attached printers. So I'm gonna build a report here and show you something that not a lot of people think about when it comes to these printers. Now, we see them out there all the time. People like to use them. They don't want to necessarily get rid of them, and that's understandable. I mean, we can easily do something about managing what happens to those printers, and this is one of the best case scenarios that you can deal with when you have a customer that has local tracking and or has local devices. You want to make sure that they're using them responsibly. When we talked to this customer, myself and the dealer, when we talked to the end user about this, the IT staff, they said, you know, oh yeah, we've sent out emails about the usage of those printers, and they're only supposed to be used for small documents and confidential ones because they don't want them to go to the MFP, which is fine. I mean, it's justifiable to have a printer like that at that point. However, when we ran this system in their environment, what we noticed was this. This is the total printing breakdown. Now, if you've been on any of the Print Audit 6 software presentations, what you can take a look at is we always show off this pie chart, and it's what I like to call the job disconnect. Again, for 47 days, we tracked 11,000 documents being produced to local printers, 25,000 pages. But what we also checked out, and this is where a good argument comes in for a rules-based printing strategy, is that just about 20% of all the printing, if you look at this pie chart down below, 20% of all the printing that went to a USB printer was over 25 pages. Now, again, little printers, they've tried to do every single effort to make sure that people weren't abusing those small printers. Here's a prime example that anyone who has a USB printer is not following the rules that IT has laid out as a printing policy. Now, again, when you talk about rules-based printing, you're talking about behavior management. One of the things that you can say is, maybe IT or maybe someone will push back and saying, well, I don't want to have my end users, get all angry about seeing all these pop-ups all the time. It's not necessarily you seeing a pop-up all the time. In fact, if you look at this on the job basis, out of all the jobs that they did, all the documents they produced, less than 1% of all the documents produced were over 25 pages. So what does that mean for your end user? That means that if you simply put a rule around if the printer is a USB printer and if the job is over 25 pages, you might see it one time out of 100. You might see that at a very, very small basis. So it's a great way to show the customer that they do need some type of active management in those printers themselves. It's also a great way to say, hey, look, we don't necessarily need to remove all the printers at this point. What we can do is we can manage them and grandfather them out on a slower basis. We'll support them, maintain them, service them, but on a go-forward basis, we're going to limit the amount of usage that you're going to use to these high-cost printers, and we're going to migrate these volumes over to lower-cost printers. So I just wanted to show you guys that. I'm going to open up the phone lines here.
The conference is now in conversation mode.
And just to see if anyone can, if everyone can hear me okay. Does anyone have any questions at this so far? Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring you guys into a little bit more in depth of some of the things that we noticed in this environment. I'll just mute you guys out again just so we don't get any feedback.
The conference is now in presentation mode.
And what we can do is we can focus down on each of these printers. As you can see, I've got them all in groups, and we can easily change the cost on them. So here we got these Canon devices here. We know that they're not being charged at 10 and 25 cents. It's easy enough for me to right-click, hit Edit Printers, and I can change the cost. So let's say it's at 0.05. And let's say the color page is at a 0.09. Very easy to do, and as you can see, there's a nice little trick that you can easily build this out. So again, this is what we looked at. This is some of the stuff that we checked out in this environment. They had some pretty good spend on their printing, as you can tell. One of the other things that we did was we also looked at the PDF creation and took a look at what the users were doing on that type of application. It was pretty good. Just about everyone had a PDF converter on their desk, whether it was an Adobe or a Cute PDF or an Alumni. It was easy enough to track the documents that they were doing the PDF creation with through the job manager, and I'll bring that into view now. And just to show you guys a little bit of a difference between the two products here, again, this is all part of the Print Audit 6 software. The analysis reporting that you've got will give you some good ad hoc reports, some good workflow, some good 30,000 foot volumes on what's going on. You can filter this out. As you can see, I did it just on the printers. If you want to get a little bit more specific, you could do this on the users, and there's a number of different ways of absolutely grouping these people into different groups. So you can basically break it down to usage by department, not just usage by printer. In this case here, what we did was we focused on the printers, and then after this we started talking about focusing on the users as a go forward. So we wanted to say, let's manage the devices first, and then let's get into the user management and take a look at what's going on. So that's what the analysis reporting module does. What I'm doing now is I'm going to bring into view the job manager, and this will give you a little bit different information on the exact same environments. Very easy for you guys to take a look at. One of the things you're able to do is you're actually able to pull up job information, very detailed job information through the job manager, and take a look at what's going on. So I'm just going to bring that up into view. While that's pulling up, what I wanted to do for you guys is just show you one of the tools that's embedded into the Print Audit 6 software, which is really key for running assessments. And this is where a lot of the time I come in. It's called the Job Merge Wizard. Now, what you're able to do is if you get the system up and running in a customer's environment, you can do what's called an export of the jobs into what we call a JBS file. Now, a JBS file is a proprietary file. It's a high security file where you can transfer user data from the Print Audit 6 software that's up and running in your customers and bring it back into your office and pull these reports. So you're not necessarily sitting in front of your customer doing this. You can do this from the comfort of your own office or your own home if you wanted to. As you can see here, I'm just going to hit the export jobs now. It's going to ask me for the database, and then it's select settings. So if I wanted to say export jobs only, and I can either do this as all jobs since the last report, all jobs in the database, or export them after a certain date. So you can do it easily customizable. Once it's done like that, you want to do a security code. So if I have want to make sure that no one else can open this up, I can call this, very simple to do. And then once I have all this stuff done, I just need to browse to where I want to export this and export that file out. Now, again, it's very easy to do, and you're going to be able to take all this information back with you and take a look at it. Now, as you can see here, this is all the detailed job information of this one particular customer. Quite a bit of information. The first thing that I want to point out to you now that we've got this up, this is something that I've seen consistently in every single assessment. In fact, I've seen this so consistently. What I'm looking at is I'm pretty convinced that this is the most consistent printed document in any organization. It's a recipe from a recipe website. I see this everywhere. It's surprising how many people think, hey, you know what, I need to cook something for dinner tonight for the kids. Let me just print this off and I'll bring it home and use it. It's unbelievable how many times you see a number of people printing this, and usually it's to something small like a USB printer. Some of the other stuff that we saw just viewing it was this, coupons. Internet coupons seem to be out there all over the place. The question is, it's a coupon. Who takes who incurs the cost of printing that coupon off? Is it the end user? Should they be printing that at home, or should they be abusing company resources and printing that in the office? And again, when you're going in with an assessment, you're not telling your customer, hey, you absolutely need to do this. You just want to pose these questions to them. Is this what you see as abuse? Should this be stopped? And we can go through and we can stop this. If we wanted to put up a rule to say, hey, I'm not allowing anything printed from allrecipes.com, you can do that. You can get really finite on some of the rules. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to run a report that I've already pre-canned out on the jobs. And just to let you know, guys, what I'm using right now is Print Audit 6.7. It's a pretty significant upgrade from 6.6. There's a lot of nice new features, a lot of enhancements that we've done with the software, which was just released last week. So it's a lot of fun to play with this, especially in large environments. I'm just going to pull up this report and I'll show you what this report looks like. So I call it jobs by application. It's a summary report that I'm doing, and I'm just doing it on a couple of things. The first one I'm doing is process name, or the application that the person was in when they printed it. The second choice I want to do is separate it between single-sided and duplex. And if I go over to the totals and breaks pad, I'm going to do this by color in black and white pages. I want to show job cost totals, show total counts, and I'm going to subtotal each one of these applications. So I'm just going to build this out. And this comes out on, again, another report that's sort of pre-canned. When you have reports like this that you figure you want to run on a periodic basis, what you can do is you can easily schedule this out so these reports will be dumped out at a specific location or emailed out whenever you have a chance, where you don't necessarily have to go into the system each time to run these reports. These reports can be configured to be sent to you. So if you're in an MPS engagement where you need to do a quarterly review on printing habits, this is a great one where you can just sort of pop up this information. One of the neat things with 6.7 that wasn't in any of the previous versions is you can get all this detailed job information exported into a CSV file and sent out to you by email. So it's a neat way of actually getting that information out, and then you can use that CSV file for maybe you need it for a report of some sort. So this is building out, and again, we're talking about quite a bit of data here, 110,000 some odd jobs. Just under 1,000 employees. We tracked 900 employees for 47 days, so we got a good idea of what they were doing on a month-over-month basis. As this report builds out, the first thing you'll notice on these applications is right down here at the bottom. You're looking at Acrobat and Accord 32. Now, what those two applications are both from Adobe. So Acrobat.exe is when you take a document and you convert it to a PDF file. Accord 32 is when you take a PDF file and you print it into a printed form. This is one thing that I see, and you know what, again, this is where I came in and I talked to you about the value of tracking image writers and PDF creators. This is something that we looked at, and we looked at fairly in depth to see what these applications were and what was actually being printed. As you can see here, and I'll go by the jobs, there was 1,800 documents created to PDF from Adobe, and then printed from Adobe into a printed form. There were 18,000 documents. So almost a 10-to-1 ratio there. When we looked at the actual document titles of what was being converted to a PDF and what was actually being printed, we estimate in this one location, every single document that was converted to a PDF was reprinted 8 times. What we're finding in a lot of the assessments that I did, and I've done a couple hundred assessments over the past year, we found that the ratio peaks out and is on an average of about 7-to-1. So every time a document was converted to a PDF, it got reprinted 7 times. Again, a business process that not a lot of people think about, that could be mitigated with maybe a rule or maybe just awareness that, if you're scanning something to PDF, you don't always have to print it off. I'm going to go down here and just scan a couple pages and just show you another one of these applications here. This is Google Chrome. As you can see here, we created 608 documents, 1,600 pages in black and white, and 36 pages in color. What we find when you look at the 3 major browsers out there, Google Chrome, Firefox, and Internet Explorer, what we find is that Internet Explorer consistently prints more color than any of the other 3 browsers. What we also find is that with Google Chrome, consistently prints less color than all the other applications. And one of the reasons why is just simply from what I can estimate is that there's a nice print preview option with Google Chrome that there isn't with the other browsers. So I'm just going to go down here and I'll show you the difference. So that was Google Chrome, but I'm going to skip down here and show you what Internet Explorer did. 41,000 pages in black and white, 9,200 in color, 13,000 documents coming from the internet. Now, again, what we also see when you look at those browsers, take this with a grain of salt, because when you go through the actual detailed jobs, what you'll find is not everything is coming from All Recipes or Target or Zales or whatever. What you'll find is that a lot of the times there is more and more Unix-based and system-based applications that have web browsers as an interface. Instead of going through the system, you're sort of opening up a web browser and running through that system and being able to use the Windows or the Mac-based print drivers to print those. So it's kind of neat the way we see a lot of this industry changing, and it's something that we're able to pick up on and help any organization track. So I just wanted to take you a look through this. One of the things that we did with this customer and with the dealer is we decided just to take a look at and cruise through the job manager itself and see a couple of things, because we were pulling off reports left, right, and center, and they're fantastic reports. But sometimes just actually looking at the data and observing what was going on is pretty key. So I'm just going to scroll over here to the right. And as you can see here, with all the amount of data that we're tracking, we can actually break this down between total units, total black and white, and total color within that job. Here's a prime example of one: 160 pages, 8 were black and white, 152 were color. But you can also sort this information out. So I'm just going to hit this color title bar here, and I'm going to hit it again. So I'm going to sort it from the largest color job to the smallest. And this is something that we were able to confirm with the use of Facilities Manager, as well. The dealer did an interview of a number of people, and we found out something pretty spectacular about this. And what we're looking at is a 16,000 page job document that was printed in color, and we can confirm that this actually did get produced. And I'll tell you a little story about this, and it's pretty telling of what we see as a lot of things that people don't realize are going on in their environment that employees think are business use. So what was happening was this one particular person here, this one particular user, was taking a disaster preparedness course that was required by his department to take. At the end of that, the instructor gave him a shut-off questionnaire. And this questionnaire was built on Excel. The presenter had built it on Excel. But this one particular guy did not necessarily like this on Excel, and he just sort of wanted a paper form, and he was able to check off these multiple choice questions or whatever, and fill it out instead of filling it out on his computer. So again, he printed it off, realized that it was coming out in a full color 16,000 page job, and instead of trying to stop the job, he sort of let it go through and hit himself away. Which was, that's fine. People make mistakes in that. But what he did next was a little bit staggering. Was he talked to his guy who sat beside him and said, "Hey, listen, can you print that questionnaire off for me?" And his coworker there, at least he reformatted it into 11 by 17 paper, as you can see here. But unfortunately, it still produced another 1,000 pages. So here's something that a simple rule could have easily stopped. And this is stuff that I was able to help the dealer showcase to the customer. The other thing that we found about this, and here's something that we see a lot of, and you can ask your customers this. A lot of the IT people will be inundated with this too, is that when they actually buy a product, instead of getting a hard output manual, what they'll do is they'll get a PDF service manual. And as you can see here, this guy who worked in the motor pool of this government office got a Cummins diesel service manual in PDF form, which is great. He thought, hey, instead of me looking this up online and getting my computer dirty, I'm just going to print it off. And I'll just scroll over here and show you what that meant, because he did print this, and because it was a service manual, it came in full color. And as I scroll over here, you can see he unfortunately printed off 588 pages. When we looked at that one individual user over the course of a 90-day period, and you can actually, with the software, one of the neat things is you can now focus in on these people. So let's say if I wanted to find out this person, I can go up to this field where it says printer used and just type in that person's name and search and hit find jobs and get all the jobs that that one individual is printed. If you think about some litigation cases these days, let's say you've got a customer whose employee walked away and is walking away with a customer base, maybe a list of it. Here you go. Just find that user, find what they printed for that time when they put in their resignation, and you can get that information right off the bat for them. Unfortunately, what this guy did was he thought that this was such a great idea that a couple months ago that he decided to try and go through and print off every service manual that the motor pool had. And he was doing this to the tune of somewhere around 10,000 pages for just over 3 months. So quite a bit of printing from one single person who honestly thought he was, saving the company a little bit of time by making sure his computer wasn't getting dirty, and had this in a printed form. Unfortunately, it probably cost him more than it would have cost to clean his computer. So, just some of the stuff that we're able to help identify as waste when it comes to individual users and workflow, and just be able to optimize this fleet. A lot of the other stuff that we also found in this is there was a couple of risk management and a couple of programs here that customers should have been sending to, let's say, maybe their reprographics department, who had a large production style printer. Instead, they were printing them off on just about every type of MFP that they could find, and just creating a lot of waste that way. If this customer simply put in a rule to say, hey, I don't want anything over 100 pages printed, you can actually save all these documents from being printed, or being printed at a very low cost machine, maybe at their production printer or something high volume. So what we did was we then took our regular presentation calculator, because with this particular customer, what we did was we did the presentation. I did the presentation for the end user. They decided to take a look at what was going on in their environment, and then we went back to this what we call the MIF review, which is a calculator we've had for a while, and it hits fairly well. First thing we did was took a look at their volumes. 342,000 total pages. Going to everything else but this dealer's printers was 205,000 pages every single month. Their color ratio was about 40%. Through a bit of a cost analysis that the dealer did, we came to the agreement with the customer that they were paying on a managed side about a penny and a half. 1.5 cents for a black and white page, 8 cents color, and on the unmanaged side, so everything all combined, they're paying just about 8 cents black and white, and believe it or not, 12.5 cents all encompassing in color. So it was pretty significant. Oops, let me just. So a blended rate, if you look at it on a management side, they're looking at about 4 cents a page on the managed side. On the unmanaged side, it came into just under 10. But what we looked at was a couple of simple rules for the dealer. And we said, listen, let's make sure that anything over 25 pages absolutely goes to a managed device. Let's make sure that we migrate over as much as 15% of all the color going over there. So anything over a certain size, if it had color in it, absolutely had to go to this dealer's printer through a rule pop-up. And what we're able to do is migrate over 72,000 pages out of the 342 and increase the service revenue in total by $38,000 just by moving that over. Now that's great for the dealer. They're making all this extra revenue without having to add anything into the environment like a new device. But what this did was this triggered sort of a cascade effect within the customer. The customer decided to go to RFP to go on a full managed service program, so they decided to build their own RFP. After we did this assessment, luckily this dealer, again with the Premier program, was able to win the deal, and basically show them what type of management they did, because no other dealer was going in there and saying, listen, I'm not just going to service your machines and maintain them, I'm going to actually reduce your MIF. Here we've got the customer again. I'm just showing you the customer facing side. What we looked at was, again, 342,000 pages, 205 were going to unmanaged. We did a couple of easy rules. Again, migrated 40% of the volume over through pop-up window messaging over to the managed devices. Migrated 15% of the color. Did about 5% duplex. And what we also did was we figured that we can reduce the printing by putting in a rule about the 100 pages. 100 plus pages jobs, and drop their volume by about 20%. And this was a fairly rough estimate. Again, we forecasted it very conservatively at a 20% reduction, simply because when you looked at the data, we could actually reduce their printing by about 65%. But I don't think that, not everyone wants to go that low. So we just made sure that we said a little conservative at 20%. So I wrapped this up just to show you guys a nice little proposal that we did for them. And let me just show you guys what this looks like. We took their total printing breakdown. We took a little bit of workflow of what the rules look like. We did a total printing breakdown of their entire environment to show them that, yeah, most of your jobs that are being printed, in fact, just over 30% of your jobs, in fact, about almost 40% of your jobs are over 25 pages. So you need to go in and look at, what the documents you're printing, why they're printing it to those devices, and how you can actually maneuver that to a cost-effective device for those types of jobs. What we did and that was just a very easy little window into what was going on. We also did the aside just a little bit of run through on the assessment. 48 days total. Actually, I got to change that. That was wrong. Internet Explorer represented 15% of the volume. Having a rule to USB printers over 25 can reduce that USB high cost volume by 20%. Outlook, Internet Explorer printed in duplex and black and white. We did this roughly as a 5% reduction. And then all 50 page jobs over to the higher volumes, we moved 40% over to higher volume MFPs. Based on monthly volumes, again, cost per page, we broke it down to a few things. We also showcased a couple of websites that we printed in color. That's easy enough. And here's what we figured out. We figured out that we could save $85,000 in the first year as an estimate for this customer. Now, again, when they did the RFP, they shortlisted this dealer. This dealer came in and put this two-pager proposal right on the back of their solution to say, hey, look, we'll refresh your fleet. We'll make sure you have the up-to-date lower cost per page MFPs. Any of your existing stuff that you have, let's say production printers, network printers, standalone printers, USB printers, instead of just getting rid of them for the time being and creating a little bit of employee upheaval, what we'll do is we'll implement some rules and control the behavior and push that, so that way as those devices break down, instead of absolutely forcing a maintenance on them or forcing a new USB or a new smaller printer, they just grandfather them out as they go. So it was the tipping point for the end user. The dealer actually won this deal, and this is how we're able to help any premier customer at any given basis. It's just a matter of coming up to taking a look at some of your customers where this spend is happening, and engaging us and letting us help you. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to open up
the conference is now
the phone lines.
Conversation mode.
I'm going to open up the phone lines here to see if anyone has any comments or questions on the materials that we've just showed. See if there's anyone out there who thinks that this could be of value to their customers, somewhere that we can actually help you out with this. By all means. So I don't hear any questions at this point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute everyone again, and just
the conference is now in presentation mode.
Close that off for a second here, and let me just end this, and I'm going to shrink that down. So yeah, so that's what we did. Initially, we talked about a 1,000 employee office here, 285 MFPs, 30% local. 14 manufacturers. Again, their toner spend was about $160,000. We reduced their overall cost by $85,000. So that takes a big chunk out of that $160,000 spend. Uh, and if you think about it, if you think about customers of this size, winning a key customer like this is absolutely imperative, and that's what we help you do. We help you look at the environment, look at inefficiencies, and give you guys some recommendations on where we can go with not just a rules-based printing program, but even what devices need to be replaced or what devices can still be there and managed out over time. At this point, I'd like to thank everyone for your time. That is everything that we've got to show for you guys today. Um, really appreciate your time for this today. Looks like we got a question here. Someone just said to me, as far as rules, do you just pop up recommendations or can you actually divert jobs? So the way the system works, this is a behavioral control. So we are doing this in one of two different ways. We are suggesting the rules, or we are doing a suggestion on the rules. Again, it's behavior control. You don't actually reroute the job automatically. What we find in softwares that do the automatic reroute, printing actually increases, and customers become a little frustrated with that. So, guys, again, thank you for your time. Again, my name is Paul Georgie. You can reach me at our print audit office here. You can call me toll free at 877-412-8348, and we can talk about how I can help you out today. Have a good day, everyone, and hopefully your days will be profitable.